welcome. Thanks very much, Joe.
How are you?
Johnny, thanks very much.
How are you?
Now, Joe, you're obviously the Irish rugby coach, everybody knows that, but you're also a man with an interest in a specific horse tomorrow. And I was asking you earlier, do you feel nervous about it? You were pretending not to be, but I don't believe you. I think you're actually a little bit you're just trying to downplay the chances. Classic media management.
No, look, I just love watching the horse run, and he's done really well. He finished off fifth first up. It was nice and quiet, and he finished off really well. And Galway probably missed the jump a bit at the start, and finished off really well. He wasn't far away from winning that one, and he jumped with them at Roscommon, and he finished on really well to get a couple of lengths ahead. But it's a whole different level tomorrow.
When your horse wins and you're watching it live on TV, what's that feeling like?
Yeah, it's a nice feeling. I suppose for me, it's an interest more than my real focus. So I tend to get a bit more excited about some other sporting action that takes place. But it's great. I love the fact that Joseph does a great job with the horse, and he's got a great team around it, and so yeah, it's a great feeling.
You were giving Cosmic Horizon a chance in tomorrow's race.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a trappy enough race, but you know, Joseph's had an unbelievable year, winning his first classic, and this is a race I think that you'd give a chance to kind of many horses in it, and I suppose winning at Roscommon would maybe not be deemed kind of up there with this sort of a track, but this horse does have a realistic chance in an open race.
Yeah, Johnny, your career has taken an entire kind of second act in recent years when you've become a trainer. Was that just a natural thing? Was it always part of your head when you were a jockey that actually, you know what, I'm going to stay in racing all my life? I mean, I can understand how that would happen, but the medium in which you've done it, becoming a trainer, was that fairly obvious for you, or was it a bit of a jump?
I built a yard at home. I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen. I didn't know if I was going to breed a few or go into training. And then I met Andrew Tinkler, and he had a few horses in England, and I started riding for him a bit. And I was kind of saying, geez, I do well with these horses of yours in Ireland. Would you not send over a couple and we'll race them in Ireland, in Dundalk? So we sent over 5, and I was getting a feel for it then. You know, we had 5 horses. I had a little team around me. I was still riding at the time. Few people were looking at me thinking, well, you can't do both, you know. And I remember William Haggis sitting in my house saying to me, well, Mr. Murtagh, I was riding a bit from in England at the time. What's it going to be, riding or training? I says, I think I'll give both. You cannot do both. So as he said that, I was kind of saying to myself, I can do both. And I had a great year that year, you know. So he came back to the sales the next year and he goes, remember I was sitting in your kitchen, I said you couldn't do both. Well, how wrong was I? But I got a feel for it then, and it seemed like a natural progression. It seems like the same. I get up early, I work until 1:30, and I go back to the horse at evening and I go to the races. But now I can eat, which is, what's the greatest thing about retirement? I said, I can eat. And like, it's strange the reaction people look at you, you know, it's just, but that's what it is now. I seem a bit more funnier, a bit happier, probably a bit more easier to live with. But no, that was the one thing. It didn't seem like a big change, although instead of riding 3 favourites on Champions Weekend, I've got 2 runners, one's 100 to 1 and the other's 16 to 1. That's the only difference.
Yeah. I think that's slightly underplaying though, the role he's had as a trainer this year. He's way ahead of his previous stats in terms of winners, and we're only in like early September, and he's had a stupendously good year, and I think we'll be hearing a lot more of him. You know, he's making that transition very easily. Because
that's not an easy thing to do, obviously.
No, it's not, because it's like a player becoming a manager or whatever. It's completely different, and you have to manage owners as well. You know, you have to, especially, I always wonder how trainers deal with the multitudes of adversity that they have, because it's like you have to deal with the owner and explain why your horse friends stink. And you were even saying about, you know, Urban Beat running disappointingly last year. You thought the world of him, and this year you know, the horse could have gone.
Yeah, we worked 2 horses together. Gordon Elliott says, can I work a few 2-year-olds? I don't mind 2-year-olds. I said, bring them up. I said, I have a load of 2-year-olds working there. So we worked a bunch of them together, and these 2 came up 10 lengths clear of the bunch. So I said, oh, that was good. And Niall McCullough rode mile. I said, oh, I was going much better than him at the top, he said. So I said, that's grand, Gordon. I'm going to run mile next week in the Curragh. Oh, he said, so am I. I said, that's grand. So we go to the Curragh and I'm standing in the stand. Gordon Elliott's horse,
Beckford, yeah.
Beckford, shits in. Mine finishes 11th of 15. I'm going, what the hell happened here? You know, I'm standing looking at all the owners after telling them what the piece of work was like. So they didn't move him to Gordon Elliott straight away, but you know, that's what I was feeling like. And we found out the next day he's after pulling a muscle leaving the gates. You know, he pulled a muscle in his hindquarters. It took him a while to get over it. He matured over the winter, and as you said,
there was a possibility he was going to go.
Well, that was the operation, the syndicate. We buy them as yearlings, we race them for a year, and we sell them at the end of their 2-year-old career. You know, that's the makeup of the syndicate. But Mark Flood and the guys got together. I says, listen, we have to keep him. And there's another one there we have to keep as well, because he's after putting on 20 kilos over the last couple of months. So he's big, he's backward, he's immature. And those 2 horses now, Urban Beat has won 3. He's fancied for the first race of the Curragh tomorrow. And Baba Boom, he's won 3 as well. So, you know, it's managing the owners, which is big. But if they trust you and they put the faith in you, which they do, you know, that makes it a bit easier. But I rang an owner the other day. I said, oh, how are you going? What's wrong? I said, no, I'm just giving you a ring to say, just to see how everything is. Oh, God, he said, every time you ring me, I fear the worst. Yeah. So that's what the training life is.
He probably has a special ringtone for you and everything. Joe, your interest in racing is long-standing. It's like all the way back to as a kid, is it? Is that when you kind of get into this?
Yeah, I was brought up in a town, really small town, Woodville. There were a lot of big trainers in Woodville. You know, it was a small country course, but a lot of trainers were based there. Eric Ropier, Murray Baker, who Baker Forsman now is really big in Australia, and Bjorn, his son, is doing a super job in Australia. Noel Eels, Mark Olligan, that'd be kind of household names in New Zealand as far as trainers, and they were all in this little town of 1,600 people. So my first memory of horses and people like Johnny Murta is I used to do a bike run and deliver papers, and they used to give out to you non-stop about disturbing the horses if you went past too fast. Now, I was about 10 or 11 years old, and I didn't even understand some of the words they used. But talking to Johnny earlier, it's the same vocabulary, you know, funnily enough.
Giving out about owners. Yeah. So you were actually born in Horsetown. This is like a proper kind of, that's your first experience of big-time professional sport in a way.
Yeah, and even, you know, I used to sneak a day off school. You know, it was a big horse racing town, but a very small track, so you'd have 7 race days a year. And this is how long ago it was, because I used to get a day off because I used to work at the racecourse. And at the end of every race, I would run up to the judge. He would give me the photo and write the results. I would run down to the secretary of the club. He would confirm the result and confirm the placings. Then I would run over to the main tote, and the main tote would start divvying everything up, and then it would go to the windows to be paid out. Apparently that's done electronically now, but yeah, it was great fitness training, because you had to be as quick as you could, because everyone's lining up at the windows wanting to be paid out.
I'm sure.
You couldn't afford to be too slow.
Was the racing in New Zealand, is it jumps racing primarily, or is it flat? Is it mixed? Is it similar?
Primarily flat,
is
but
it? Okay.
There's quite a bit of jumps racing. Obviously over the winter, jumps racing, but you wouldn't often have a whole meeting of a card that's all jumps racing. There'd normally be, say, 5 or 6 flat races, and then maybe 2 or 3 jumps races, and 1 hurdles, one steeples, and it would normally go like that. There's very few all jumps cards, the odd one maybe.
And the New Zealand horses had a great record in the Melbourne Cup. They always bred now, it's kind of staying types. In Australia it's more speed. So it used to be great for the New Zealanders to go over and win the Melbourne Cup. You can imagine how, you know, that's what it was. But Ireland have taken over that as well now, the Melbourne Cup.
We always like the Kiwis. We always favour the Kiwis over the Aussies as well. We were speaking about Rovetta on the show last
Sean O'Brien's
because
horse.
Rovetta is owned by Sean O'Brien, but Rovetta is bred by So You Think, and So You Think was actually So You Think was a New Zealand bred horse who the Aussies kind of took as theirs as well, and then we took as ours when it joined Aidan O'Brien. But it was with the NZ prefix, and it was like one of the main horses I've ever remember that was bred in New Zealand.
Yeah. Look, they did the same with Pavlova. They stole the dessert off us as well.
Like the horse Pavlova?
Yeah, Pavlova is really Kiwi, but the Aussies will claim it. And So You Think was bred in the deep South Island in New Zealand, and probably one of my favourite memories of the Melbourne Cup was when Kiwi won it. You couldn't get a better name to go to Australia and win with, especially when he's 2 lengths last with about less than a mile to go over 2 mile, and he boomed down the outside. Snow Lupton, the trainer, used to work him on the farm, and at one stage he wasn't even going to race him because he was a farm hack, just about. And that's how good your horses have to beat the Aussies. That's
like a Secretariat, except the Lord of the Rings version. Come here. You're obviously mad into racing then. Like when this opportunity comes along to be associated with a horse that's in Joseph O'Brien's yard, like you fully understand exactly that there's a strain of genius that Joseph is not just inheriting but kind of building on. Yeah, look, there's a few mannerisms that are very similar to Aidan, and one of them is humility. Aidan, what he's achieved in the sport is phenomenal, and you wouldn't know it to talk to him, and he would never tell you about it. And Joseph is a little bit the same, but I've seen Joseph out, doing the job, and he's very mild-mannered, very understated, but you can't underestimate what he's achieved, with rekindling, winning the Melbourne Cup, and amazingly for the Irish, he beats his dad with Johannes Vermeer, and in third Willie Mullins, there's a big 3 of Irish racing.
Patrick Mullins came out with the line after that race where he was like, we went halfway around the world to be beaten by a horse 50 miles down the road. And that actually summed up what Joseph did with rekindling, to send a 3-year-old, who was basically a very good 3-year-old, to the Melbourne Cup, was probably, many people would say, was just, this horse is way too inexperienced to do this. But I think what he did now will become something that people will look at. If you have a high-class 3-year-old, why not target him at the race? Because what rekindling did, I think, could be groundbreaking for Irish and British trainers anyway.
What, specifically the fact that you don't actually need to be as exposed as maybe
no, exactly thought. So if you're 3, I suppose at Toby, it's such a rough race for a 3-year-old. I don't know what you think, Johnny, but like to send a 3-year-old to the Melbourne Cup would have, especially because of all the difficulties in actually quarantine and all that. But he was a high-class 3-year-old, and he's getting in there off potentially a lenient mark. And I don't know if it's something you'd ever think of doing.
Yeah, if you had the right horse, it's the Melbourne Cup is a huge race now in the international scene. I've rode in it twice. Great, it's like you're playing for Ireland. You're getting up there and the national anthem is playing, and then it's Walls Sing Matilda as you're going to the start. Maybe it didn't get me full attention the race, so maybe I was kind of listening too much. But it's a brilliant race, and rode in it twice. Atmosphere before it, big crowds. It's a race everyone wants to win. A 3-year-old going down there and doing it, he has to be a bit special to do that. The whole build-up before and waiting before the race. You have 2 hours. See, we usually stable them in a stable and then we bring them up to the track. In Melbourne, you kind of have to sit around in a pre-parade ring, so you're there for 2 hours in the middle of all this boom, boom, boom. So it takes a pretty special horse to be able to do that before the go and race. So it was a remarkable achievement, but you'd just love to get one of those horses on your hands, because that's what you need.
You've won every big race that there is to win. How much of the occasion did you play? How much of the occasion did you pay attention to? How much of it were you involved in the races? Or did you have to shut every single element of the external world out for the duration of each race?
I really missed the weigh room. The weigh room is like, I used to had a sauna at home. I'd get out of the sauna, I'd put my suit on, all my good clothes. I'd get out of my car, I'd walk into the weigh room, just straight into the weigh room. And sometimes people say, you weren't in good form, you didn't say hello to me today, Johnny. Like, I was getting out of the sauna, I was probably able to talk, you know what I mean? But the weigh room was the place. You got in there, all the lads were there was something going on. The great crack, great laugh, big weekend like this, a bit quieter, you know what I mean? But there's still a bit of banter going and somebody's saying something or slagging somebody off. I'll never forget the first derby I rode in. I really fancied the horse. I went over with John Ox, everybody's quiet on the plane. I walked the course, the last 2 furlongs at Epsom. And, you know, it's 60,000 people there, they're all on the infield. It's a half an hour before the first race. And all I said to myself is, this is where you always wanted to be. You cannot chicken out now. You cannot, you cannot play on the big day. This is the day to do it. And I was craving for this day for so long. So I just said, cannot be your fault today. So that was one of the occasions that really got to me, but it got to me in a positive way. I turned it really into a, and that's what I used to do all the time. You'd be a little nervous at times, you'd have the butterflies, but, you know, I suppose at the start I was so driven by fear first, you know, geez, I better not mess up today, you know, that kind of way. You're afraid of messing up. But in the end, I used to really channel it in the right way. I deserve to be here. This is where you do. Don't do anything silly today. Today is not for trying anything new. Just do what you do every day. You know, basic stuff. Keep it really, really simple. The big days is the time to keep it really simple. If you want to try something new, maybe a maiden in Roscommon.
Didn't you have a horse in that race, Johnny? Do you want to tell us about your horse in that race?
I had one entered for the race tomorrow in Leopardstown. You know, it was an early entry, so 600 quid. I entered it. It's Tony Smurfett. You know, I want to impress Tony. He's new into the game again. He's coming back booming again. So not alone that I bought it for him first. He didn't win a race. So I entered him a race. I sent him a nice email, big long email. Oh yeah, run your horse in Champions Weekend. It's going to be a big weekend. He's going really well at home. And all I got back was, why? I said, don't worry. I said, I'll give him a prep at the Curragh and I'll show you. So there was 8 runners at the Curragh. He finished 8th of 8. We won't be going to the Curragh, so he said. So that's what happened to my entry at the Curragh show.
Yeah.
Joe, what about you as a coach? Do you have to play the occasion or talk about it to everybody? Is there or do you have to ignore it too and treat every game as if it was any of the games you've ever coached in all your life? Do you have a different sense of big games on big days like that?
Yeah, I'm a lot less involved on a big day. You know, I think a trainer is in there and he's giving last instructions and things like that. I'm a lot less involved directly. You know, it is the players' environment. They are the guys in the gladiatorial arena. So really, they lead themselves into that. I'm a little bit like Johnny there. I'm probably motivated by fear, and I've probably got a few things going on the back of my head, thinking, well, the worst case scenario is probably this or that, and you know, there's been a few of those, and you try to maybe have pre-thought out a few solutions, because if it all goes well, you don't actually have to solve that.
Yeah.
That looks after itself. But what your job then becomes is, okay, if this doesn't go well, we probably change a bit with this strategy, or we maybe make that substitution, and so you're just trying to stay as logical as possible and as unemotional as possible.
Were you always good at that? Like, is that something that you had
No, I'm still no good at it, but that's what I try to do. You're learning all the time. You know, I've been doing the job professionally for a long time, but you're still the same person. You just probably have learned along the lines.
How do you keep learning though at this stage of your careers? Like, you know, I'm interested in both your answers to this. Like, because obviously you've had experience of the best trainers and the best horses and the biggest ownership groups. Like, how do you become a better trainer now?
It's just through experiences, you know. I always say I never lose. I win or I learn. Most of the time you're learning more from the losses. I got a real good filly last year and she was going really, really well, and the ground was good, and I knew she wanted maybe good to yielding or good to soft. It doesn't matter, I said, you know, I'm a young trainer, going places, she'll win anyway. So she went to the races and she came home a bit sore, so I put her out for a couple of months. So I learned from that. I said, when all those ticks are not in the right boxes, you know, you don't go there. Now I just think I'm very teachable, and Joe, I try and stay humble. Now, it's hard. For me, right? But I think that's the key. It's, you know, I've got 10 staff. I'm driving the Jeep. They're riding the horses, and like their feedback, their one bit of feedback is, you know, you can ignore it or you can take it on board. But I've got good riders, they know what they're doing, and they're just nearly reconfirming what I think. But they might just say one little thing, oh, he maybe needs a different bit on him, or maybe he needs a cross nose band to keep his mouth closed. So little things like that. So I think you have to be, and in racing, you really are. When I was riding, I didn't realise you're only as good as your last winner, but now in training, you are really only as good as your last winner.
I think that delegating as well is so key when people look at Willie Mullins and Gordon Elliott, the dominating that they've had. If you go to Gordon's, you just see the team under him. It's like a manager with incredibly good players, and the same at Willie's, like, and people don't take enough notice of that. And they're the people, when Aidan references Andy and Paul and John and Andrew and all these people, he's doing it for good reason, because he actually means it, and he knows that he needs the staff around him. And you know, I think Johnny would attest to that as well.
Yeah, Joe, how do you improve now? Like, what are the things that you can kind of? Is it?
It's incredibly similar to Johnny in that you need a really good crew around you. You know, we have a fantastic strength and conditioning staff. Jason Cowman leads that. I think he's world class. We have great coaches in various positions. You know, Simon Easterby does a great job. Greg Feek. We've got a depth and props that we never had. Certainly 8 years ago when I arrived in the country, we were scraping around for tight heads. Now, you know, we've got some fantastic, not just tight heads, but really young tight heads coming through. So getting that really good staff around you. Andy Farrell's done a super job, really gets the players invigorated about defending, excited about defending. And Richie Murphy, he's out and about improving the kicking skills, improving the passing skills of guys all the time. So getting those sort of guys around you, same with the medical staff, logistics. So it is a big team behind the team, and they do a fantastic job. And so I'm still learning from them sometimes. You know, Jason Cowman will watch me take in a session, and he'll come over and he'll say, look, you know, this guy's done this many accels, decels, you know, it might be good for him to taper off, or maybe if you can swap him in and out, you know, just making sure that guys don't overtrain and that balance is kept. If I didn't have those people, I don't think that you keep things going as well as they are. And then I go down and I watch Aidan, you know, in the Jeep, or Joseph, or you go and chat to Jim Gavin, or you chat to other people who are training in different codes, and you sort of get frustrated with what you don't know, you know. And so
that's interesting, because that's you know, there's very few people who you can who have a similar set of issues that you can just talk about in a safe environment. You know, because obviously you can't really tell us what all of your issues are, because then everybody starts to know about them. Whereas with Jim Gavin or whoever, especially with Joseph or Aidan, I imagine you can just have a conversation about, these are the issues that I'm interested in talking to you about. What do you do in those circumstances? And that's at least a meeting of minds of some sort.
Yeah, I mean, even watching Aidan work with the staff and how he engages with the staff, and talking to Pat Gilroy, you know, when he had the Dublin side, it was really interesting with a couple of the things that he was doing. And I'd actually go along and watch Dublin play, and he had them defending a certain way, and I actually got a bit of an understanding of the game, you know, not a deep understanding, but you know, there's always a little bit of you know, crossover between what you're learning there and even talking to, you know, it can be someone like a Ken Doherty, you know, who the only green thing he plays on is a small table, well, a big table, but even the mindset he takes into things, and so you're just picking up little things all the time, and you're a bit like a magpie. You grab all the shiny stuff. And steal it. Yeah,
well, fair enough. Johnny, I was really interested, like, in you know, the stats from the duration of your career, and the number of wins that you had in grade ones and the number of wins that you had are off the charts, right, for most normal human beings. But then the corollary of that is you lost a lot of races too, because in horse racing your success rate is, if you're like at 10%, it's like, wow, I'm amazing. So how do you deal with the defeats? Do you just blink them away? Is that the definition of being a professional?
I used to do, you know, you might go to the Curry, you might ride 3 winners, and then you might get beaten on the last favourite, and someone would say, oh yeah, F and so. That's the guy you used to bring home. You know, he'd be the guy you bring home to your wife and kids, you know, why would he say that to me? And, geez, I wasn't that bad today. So you'd be bringing him home. So, like, I didn't need anyone to criticise me. I was my own worst critic. I'd be watching the videos and I'd be going, what could I have done there? You know, but later on in life, I just I just let them pass, you know, because it's only 30 minutes between races. So if you ride the first one bad, I went to Arc weekend and had 5 rides in 5 Group 1s, and I thought, my agent said to me, Johnny, wouldn't have got you 5 better rides. Going over in the plane, I said, gee, I think we're going to have a good day today. So I rode the first one for Michael Stout, 6-4 favourite. I was coming down the fall straight in Longines, and I got a bit of a slip and flew home, finished the next second. Maybe should have won. So now I'm thinking, I hope it's not going to be one of those days, right? So I'll go in between races, I'm washing myself, and I look in the mirror, I'm washing my face, and I says, Johnny, it can't be one of these days. It cannot be one of these days. That one's gone, the next one. So I won the next 3, and then I finished 5th in the last one. So it's all about your thinking. You have to have very clear, you know, positive, and just a matter of looking in the mirror and saying, it cannot be one of those days. You know, because sometimes you go out there, you kick the first ball wide, and then you hear the commentator, oh, he's just having one. You're the only one to control that. So I was good at that. I was good at putting, you know, later in my career, I was even better at it. You know, I didn't.
How did you get good at it?
I used to just say, well, no one else would have won it, Johnny. Come on, don't be too hard on yourself. No one would have won that. You know, even if you didn't believe it.
I was going to ask. Did you believe it? Did you believe it? Because like
even if you didn't believe it, you had to tell yourself that, just to get you to the next one. You know, because you can't be carrying so much happening in a race so quick. You know, you go around Champion Stakes. It's what, 1 minute and 40 seconds, or 1 minute and 40 seconds, or whatever it is. But you know, gap comes left and right. It's not. You don't have, I wonder, will I go there? You know, it's not, you just have to, it's on instinct all the time. So you can't have anything negative, you know, no negative in those, because one reaction could mean the difference of winning or losing. You
were a boxer. You started out as a boxer before you were a jockey. Like you were a child, teenager boxer, and then you become a jockey. It's not like you were born into a horse family or any of that kind of stuff.
No, I never rode a horse till I was 15. Done all sport, captain the football team, basketball team. I was boxing one night in Navan, I boxed in Navan, and a guy sitting beside me, mum says, oh, he'd make a great jockey. Mum says, why is that? He said, well, he's light, he's tenacious. I have a son down in the apprentice school in Kildare, and here's the number. So she wrote away, and the only thing I ever rode was a donkey down the field with my cousins, you know. So I got down into the apprentice school in Kildare, you know, loved it straight away, loved the atmosphere straight away. There was 26 lads together living in there. I was the only boy of 2 younger sisters, so I don't know if I even thought about being a jockey at that stage. I just said, this is good. So something to do every night. And so those 26 lads, we kind of grew up together, learning how to ride. There was some of them ahead of me. There was some of them pony racing, show jumping. And I remember saying to the instructor, how far am I behind the good lads? And he goes, no, not to worry. He says, you've no bad habits. You're going well. You've no bad habits. They have a few bad habits. So you're starting from scratch. So then M26 became my opponents. You know what I mean? So I was driven to... So I couldn't wait to catch up with them. And then the riding always came easy, you know.
The riding always came easy, like, at that level. How did that happen? Like,
I just took to it, you know what I mean? I found it easy to ride horses. You know, I seemed to like them, and they settled well for me. And
what do you have to have, though? Because it's not easy at all. Like,
I don't know. I've got apprentices now, and I'm looking at them, and can you teach them? Do they have it inside them? Is it something you have to have? I don't know, but the riding always seemed to be easy to me, and you need to be lucky. Like, I was on the bus after 2 months learning to ride. There's 26 of us there. We're going out to trainers. So you're told on a Friday, Johnny Murtagh, you're going to a guy called Robert Conley. He's a young trainer on the Curragh. He's starting up. You're going to him. He wants you. So I went home and told my parents, I'm going to Robert Conley, good young trainer, might give me a chance, you know, full of hope. So Monday morning on the bus, there's a big hoo-ha, and they go, there's a bit of a change. Murtagh, you're going to John Ox. John Ox wants 2 apprentices instead of 1. So I went to John Ox. You know, so was that luck or what? You know, what
happened to the other apprentice who went to John Ox?
Yeah.
Do you know, there's more to this. It's the humility.
You ruined his career.
but that was it. I was a year and a half there, and then I got signed on as an apprentice. First year I rode 12 winners, second year I rode 26 winners, third year I was champion apprentice. So it was just always just easy.
Were you ruthless? Were you like? It sounds like you were ultra competitive, right?
I was
captain of every team and boxing.
Yeah, I was. I was just loved winning. And I remember playing football once in an under-12 team, and the other midfielder didn't come. So I was midfield. Me and him used to play midfield, so we didn't pass the ball to many of the rest of them. We just came down to you, to me, and he didn't come. So we were 3 goals down after the first half, and we came back. We lost by a point. So I was coming off the pitch, and someone says to me, "They didn't lose because of you, Johnny. You done your best today." And that, you know. And another one that stuck in my mind. I was boxing in Dublin one night, and I boxed a guy from Dublin, from Drimna, in the stadium, and I was a little bit intimidated by him. You know, away from the country, come up, you meet the Dubs, they're a bit, you know, they're shit. They got the robes on, you know. They got the robes on, we've got the bloody tracksuit tops on, you know what I mean? Swanning around there, you know. And the first round went, and I don't know if I gave him too much respect or I was a little bit afraid, but I kind of lost the first round. I got beat 4-1 on points. And I was 14, I says, that will never happen to me again. I will never be beaten before I start. You know, I'll never be beaten. Yeah. That will never happen to me again. I'll never give them the respect. And I don't mean it as in a bad way, give them respect, but I'll never think they're better than me before I start. And there were 2 things that I carried through, and I suppose that's what, you know, that's what...
that's where your drive comes from.
That's what I was, yeah.
Yeah. Joe, where does your drive come from?
I'd be super competitive as well. But my drive probably comes from... I get real satisfaction about, because I see how hard players work, I get real satisfaction about being involved on the periphery of that and seeing them get reward for how hard they work. And so we want to be super competitive. We're looking for every margin we can get, but we wouldn't compromise who we are and what we stand for and trying to get that margin either. You know, we try to make sure that we play by the rules, that we do respect our opponents, that we, you know, not like Johnny here, you know, because we'd love to play against Johnny, to be honest, because I think if he's a prop, we're a chance. Yeah, I'm not sure where it comes from, other than being super competitive.
Did you always have it though, like as a teenager, as a player?
Yeah. And you know, sometimes you'd actually look at yourself and you'd think you really need to give yourself an uppercut, because you would get so shitty about losing a game, and you just look at yourself and go, just will you not let it go? I could tell you still some stories about games I lost as a kid that still annoy me, or games that we lost, you know, and there's a decision that's made or whatever, and they still, you know, unfortunately, they tend to kind of embed themselves, and they're harder to get rid of than some of the really good days. And I don't know whether that's the same for other people who are competitive, but we've had a hell of a lot more good days than bad days. But
it gets much harder now that you're an international manager, because you have so much fewer matches than you did when you were a club coach. At least if you lost a match as a club coach, there's a match probably the next week that you can maybe try and overcome it. But at international level, there's really 10 meaningful games a year. Yeah,
you know, I'd still be just as bitter as a provincial manager or a club coach, just because there's probably been just a few times where, you know, in the last 8 years or since I've come to Europe in the last 11 and a half years, where we've actually been utterly outplayed, and it doesn't matter how I replay that in my head, there is not a visible solution. But there's been other times where, you know, even in really big games where we haven't actually been far away, and some of it's just been a little bit of a lack of belief, or a little bit of a lack of cohesion, or 1 or 2 individual errors that undo you, and you tend to pick those apart, and that's part of learning as well. I think you try to make sure that those errors don't occur again, and you build from them. As Johnny said, you know, you win or you learn. I'd like to think that you learn and you learn. You know, there's wins where we've been a little bit lucky, or we've done something that's worked really well, and we learn, well, that really works well for us, so we'll keep building on that.
Are they the best ones, the ones where a move comes off that you've been sitting on for a number of years, going, sometime we're going to get the opportunity to use this, and then all of a sudden it leads to a try in a big game at Twickenham, say, for example?
Yeah, well, you know, sometimes they are gratifying because you know how many times we've rehearsed them. And the thing with that try in Twickenham is Bundy Aki does an incredible job to time his pass to CJ Stander, because the obvious pass is Gary Ringrose, but there's a guy trailing him and he's going to get dragged down. He picks the right player, he picks the right time to make the pass, and the pass is right there for CJ to pick up. And it was a little bit like that when we were 30 points to 8 ahead of the All Blacks, and we're 33-29 ahead of the All Blacks, and we get a scrum in an attacking position, or we get a scrum in a deep position initially, and we attack wide from the deep. And part of that was because they had some injuries. And it's almost funny now, but I sent a message out, attack Savia on the wing. So they attacked the short side where Julian Savia was, not where Adi Savia, the flanker, was. So I couldn't believe it. I said the other Savia, I just wish people wouldn't put brothers out there, And then, of course, we attacked down that wing and they swapped Adi Savia into the midfield or into number 10 and put Ben Smith, one of the best players in the world, out on the wing. And I go, oh, maybe not now, but it's too late. The message is there. And they skin him, and Zeebs does a great kick over the top. And Conor Murray hit in that tackle was phenomenal. But then the little set play from that, we'd been trying to get a field position where we were going to have a crack with that for 2 years. We dreamt it up against South Africa a couple of years ago to have a crack at, and just when the opportunity arose, it just worked, like it did on the day.
Yeah, that must be unbelievably fulfilling, that they've got that muscle memory and it's all practice to the point where they're like, yeah, okay, this is exactly the field position we've been waiting for. I'd one question, because there is that sliding doors moment in Johnny's life where you end up in John Ox's instead, and if you hadn't come to Ireland, do you ever think about that? Like getting the Leinster gig releases this whole part of your life.
Yeah. And even coming to France, coming across to Europe in the first place, I took my contract home to sign a 2-year extension with the Blues, and my wife really suggested maybe we should head to France. It'd be great for the kids. They'd pick the language up, and they did, and we were so useless to start with. It's embarrassing, but I picked it up, and it was a fantastic challenge for me to go into a country where the culture was new, where the language was new, the competition was new. I didn't know where Claremont was. It was like going to Mullingar, And so, yeah. Well, they're right in the middle of the two countries, and the similarity ends there. But I think we've still got some fantastic friends in Claremont and in Mullingar, and we still sneak down there. So, I do sometimes think about that, because I didn't even want to be a rugby coach. I volunteered to be a basketball coach when I first started teaching, and the boss that was there at the time, he was a massive rugby man. He played a lot for Auckland, and I was playing on the wing for Manawatu, so I was playing provincial rugby at the time, in what was the kind of top grade of the NPC. And when he said you've got to be involved in the co-curricular life of the school, I said, well, yeah, that'd be great. I'll coach basketball. And he said, yeah, look, that's perfect. Basketball's on Friday nights. It won't affect your rugby coaching on Saturday mornings. And I was scared of him, so I said, yeah, look, that's great. It wasn't great. It was a nightmare, The whole weekend was gone by the time you played yourself as well. But I think that's a great story from Johnny about the sliding doors. But I bet you talk to John, you talk to anyone who's been involved in sport, and there are a number of sliding doors. And sometimes those doors have opened in the right manner, and you get to where you feel lucky to be, and I'm in that spot.
Johnny, the level of, we were just chatting before we came on air, you were talking about making the weight, and you've obviously mentioned it about the freedom in retirement to be able to eat. It requires a level of obsession to be able to wage constant war on your body to make the weight, right? That's the kind of madness that I think the rest of us don't fully understand about the jockeys, particularly the flat jockeys who have to get down to such low weights.
Yeah, that was the big thing for me. All my career, I suppose, that's the way it was. I was kind of big from the start. You know what I mean? I was trying to do 7 stone at the start, and I was always then sneaking up all the time. Like there was no racing from November till March, so I'd come back. I'd be 9 stone 7, 9 stone, or yeah, 9 stone 10. I'd have to get to 8 7. So I used to go running with the sweat gear on, and going to the sauna and doing it all that kind of way. I mean, doing it myself. You know what I mean? So you'd be just driven mad. Like, it was really hard. It was really hard. It was hard mentally. It was really hard because you knew what was coming. I could smell the sweat gear in the morning going down the room. You know what I mean? I used to say to my wife, "Oh, wash that in that nice, that nice Lenore stuff, that the nice smell off it." But I could even the Lenore stuff was starting to smell. You know what I mean? So I used to have 3 sets of sweat gear. So every time I come in, just put it in the wash, and there'd be another one there for the next day. I'd take off 2 kilos, 2.5 kilos every day. Before you go riding. So a few years went by doing that, and I went to a guy in Limerick, and I said, I better tell him everything, because I said, he's the first guy. He went down UL, he was one of these sports nutritionist guys. So I sat down for about half an hour, and I started telling him what I was doing. I could see him kind of fidgeting in the chair a bit, you know what I mean? He was kind of looking at me a bit strange, sweating and, running and saunaing and going for a run and then driving to the races with the sweat gear on, Go for a run, put the heaters on, and drive to the races for 2 hours with the heaters on. So you take off 4 or 5 pounds every day. So mentally it was very hard. But I remember speaking to this guy, and he said, "When do you rehydrate?" I said, "Well, the season goes from March until November." So I said, I usually put a bit on in November. He goes, "That's not right." So that was the first time I was introduced to a kind of a proper plan. So then in recent years, I really got on top of it. I had a dietitian. I had a dietitian, I had a sports guy, a guy I spoke to all the time. So there was nothing going through my mind. There was no one big thing or 5 little things going through my mind that was upsetting me. There was only one thing I had to do, was arrive at the races in good shape, ready to go. And I was eating good. I was eating she put me on 2,000 calories a day. So I got down to 9 stone. I said, "We need to cut it lower." So now I was on 1,800 calories a day. So, and I was running in the morning and going to the gym in the evening. So now I was getting to 9 stone, and I was starting to really struggle. I said, "Listen, 1,500 calories a day." And I was working out twice as well as riding. So that was the hardest part. But if I could get 3 good months at that, real tough regime, no dairy products, drinking water, no fizzy drinks, chicken, fish, vegetables, everything was so bland. There was no salt, no sugar. But if I got 3 good months of that, and I got down to 8 7, I could get then a really good 3 months. And I used to always try and be ready for the 1st of May. 1st of May was a big day. I wanted to be 8 7 on the 1st of May. So that was 2 months down the way. But, of course, it'd last a couple of months, and I'd be a night out here, a night out there, and, you'd wake up the next day and you'd know. But you'd be eating dinner, and you'd be knowing, I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
So you weren't even enjoying it. But I say, okay, you're going to have it, but it's ahead of you tomorrow. Doesn't matter. I said, we'll enjoy it tonight. We'll worry about tomorrow. So that was the kind of way it was. So mentally, I'd say mentally I was very strong. Mentally I'd say I would have kept going it. But after speaking to this guy, he just couldn't believe it. He said, and he gave me a few little tips to get through. And as I said, I think the last 10 years of my career, I was more prepared, and I had that self-belief that I'm ready now. The fear was gone. I put in the work. I deserve to be here. I deserve to be here where I am, and that's. But the mental side of not eating and, trying to be nice and trying to be a dad and
Not easy.
Not easy. I had 5 kids at the time. But I had a great wife. I used to say to her in March, I'm going on my diet now. Don't be asking me to do anything. You know what I mean? And I mightn't be happy. I mightn't be that nice when I come in, and I might be a bit grouchy. So give me a bit of leeway. So, but she's a great woman, and she put me back in my place. Pretty quick. But I think that's what you need. You need strong people behind you, good family life, and that's what I have. I've got all that in place, and I think that's just carrying through to the next stage of my career.
Yeah, good stuff. Johnny's going to stay with us. We're going to let Joe go. Joe, best of luck tomorrow, and of course, for the rest of the year? Because it's a busy year. You keep getting asked about the World Cup. You'll notice I did very well by not asking about the World Cup to those points.
Yeah, not you. I really appreciate that.
So we're going to win it, right?
And you didn't even mention it at the end either. Thanks.
Joe Schmidt, thanks very much. Ladies and gentlemen. We're here in the Leopardstown Inn on the eve of the Longines Irish Champions weekend. We're obviously previewing the racing in Leopardstown and the Curragh. We're here in the Leopardstown Inn, as I said, with the League of Champions, Johnny Murtagh, Joe Schmidt and John Small. We're going to preview the races. We're going to talk with John Small immediately after the next ad break. All right. On the eve of the Longines Irish Champions weekend at Leopardstown and the Curragh, we're here in the Leopardstown Inn with the League of Champions, Johnny Murtagh, Joe Schmidt and John Small. Good evening, how are you?
Not too bad, Ger, how are you?
I'm very well. Johnny Murtagh is still with us, John Duggan is here as well.
Ger, lads, good evening.
We're going to pick some charity bets for the tote.com. We're going to have a winner this week.
Yeah, we're
going to let Johnny Murtagh pick one anyway, so that's where we're going to get the winner from. It won't be coming from you.
What? It's a long year ahead. You seem to be forgetting the winner we had there a couple of months ago. Like,
I definitely have forgotten. Eating bread is soon forgotten. Before we get to you, John, I want to ask John Duggan about your own personal relationship with the jackpot at Leopardstown.
Well, Leopardstown paid for the kitchen. And to elaborate on that story, this is my local track, and I've been coming here for 20 years. I looked at the horse that I backed first to win at Leopardstown. It was called Rocket's Castle in 1999. The 7th of March was the date, so it's quite a while ago. And I suppose I grew up with racing through my dad, who's no longer with us, but in 1991, he did the jackpot on Stephen's Day, which is one of the biggest days of the year for Irish racing as a whole. And the first winner was 20-1. The second winner was 14-1. You need to get the four legs races, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And he got to the last race, and he had the favourite. Nobody else had the favourite.
So you're still in it. He won the first.
He was the only person in it. And the pool was 22,000 punts. So before betting exchanges or all this technology, he went up to a bookmaker, realising that if the horse, Cambality was the name of the horse, didn't win, he would get nothing. He went up to a bookie and he said, "Do you know what? I'm going to be the bookie now. I'll lay you 3-1 on Cambality for £1,000. So he knew that if the favourite won, he'd owe a bookie £4,000, including the stake back. And if another horse won, he'd come home with £1,000, 1,000 punts, and Cambality won. So he gave the bookie £4,000. He took home 18,000 punts. This didn't happen every week. This only happened once in his lifetime. But I actually adjusted it for inflation today. It was €38,000 in today's money. So my dad is long gone, but the kitchen's still there. So that's my funny story about Leopardstown. But I've been coming to Leopardstown for 20 years. I love Christmas here. I love even back in the day, you're a teenager or a student, you're coming in here and you're just crammed and you're watching the King George of Kempton on the screen, and then you're going out and you're watching, you're shopping around for prices and you're going, well, it's 5-1 there, 6-1 there, I've got a fiver here, and you're getting your little docket and all that. And everything's changed, and obviously the fantastic facilities here now. Looking forward to tomorrow's Champion Stakes. But I just love the fairness of the track. I think it's a very fair course. What you see is what you get. There are very few freak results at Leopardstown, both over the jumps and the flat, and we got the cream of Irish racing. I was speaking to Desi Scattle, the commentator there, about a month ago when he was retiring. He's been 45 years calling races in Ireland, an institution. And he said the best race he ever called was Fantastic Light against Galileo in the Champion Stakes here back in 2001. I watched it back. Johnny Murtagh would obviously know a lot about it. I watched it back here on YouTube today, and you're thinking Galileo's going to get there. He'd been unbeaten. He'd won the English Derby very impressively, and he didn't get there, and Frankie Dettori won. But I'm just thinking about the Champion Stakes. You've like horses that would bypass Doncaster, the St. Leger, which would have been the Nijinsky route of 1970. You would have had Sea the Stars and the best horses we've ever seen anywhere in the world winning this race tomorrow before going winning the Arc. Golden Horn doing the same, Dylan Thomas doing the same. And I think it's just testament to everybody that they've got this Longines weekend, tomorrow at Leopardstown and the Ledger at the Kerr. We got, I think, 4 Group 1s at the Kerr on Sunday. So everybody should give themselves a pat on the back. We don't sometimes do that enough in racing.
No. In Ireland, generally.
I think John is my kind of thought process as well. If I say Longines enough, I'll get a watch eventually.
Yeah, join the queue. John Small, how are you doing? Congratulations.
Cheers, thanks very much.
Any intention?
He deserves a round of applause.
Yeah, come on. We were talking about dealing with losing earlier on, and John Small still has to lose a senior championship match.
Yeah, I'm there 4 years, and luckily we haven't lost one, so I'm very privileged.
Come on, it's not bad. It's not a bad record.
I know. Things are going well at the moment, but as you know, these things can be cyclical. And
Johnny Martin's giving him the old digs here, so you're allowed to talk. It's free. This is your 2-week window where you're allowed to tell us what's really going on.
No, because I remember going to Dublin games when I was growing up, and Dublin they were winning a few Leinsters, but they weren't winning all Irelands, and we're very lucky with the group we have at the moment.
Who was your hero growing up in the Dublin team?
Stephen Cluxton, I'd say. Yeah, I was lucky enough to play with him, and then
he must be sickened hearing you say that.
Well.
That's like
Alan Brogan was brilliant, and Brian Cullen was very good as well. So all them guys, and I got to play with them and meet them all as well along the way. So
yeah, what's your racing connection? Because I know that Johnny won't tell me how good your last couple of weeks have been, but he's been on the piss with you. So you're obviously you were at the races in Laytown having the crack.
Yeah, I went down with Johnny on the Thursday, a few nights out after the All Ireland, and then got on to Johnny. And we said, we got on to Johnny and said go down to Laytown. So we had a couple of winners, but it had a good time. The connection with racing is through my dad. Growing up, he would have been involved in a good few syndicates and stuff, and he would have had a few horses himself. Out on the flat and the jumps, would have got brought up and down the country to the various racetracks from the age of probably 10. Obviously Leopardstown, the Kerr, Ferry House, was brought to Wexford, Down Royal, all these places, and loved it from a young age, and just kind of carried it on since, and that's how it came about.
So it's a kind of family interest, long-standing. Yeah. And is this something that you'd be interested in getting involved in yourself? Like, do you see
Johnny? He wants. He's going to take a horse off you there now for the night is out.
We're lining him up here now for the syndicate. Yeah, we're lining him up.
Never know in the future. Well, Johnny Ward have a good story now if you want about getting involved in a horse. But
I probably shouldn't really tell this in the auspices of like a HRI sponsored program, but we got him involved in a horse, and he paid me the money on the Thursday. The horse got injured on the Saturday. And that was it was. But
the horse is no longer with us, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was one of them. Unfortunately, that's the way the sport happens. But the first horse I got involved in was very successful, and at least with you got like you got the other side of it, because it's not all glory and all that. But I think you'll get involved again.
I'm sure I will.
When you make the losses back from the one from the donkey you bought off Johnny. Basically.
It wasn't a donkey; he just got injured. In fairness, but I think even. You could tell him and his dad when they came to the yard, which was Gavin Cromwell's, the thrill they got out of it, just seeing the horses. And I think people don't see that aspect of it. Like the days where you're not racing, you can go to the yard, like say if you have a horse with, if you go with Damien English, you can go up to the beach and watch them work. And, you just become sort of part of the family almost. But there's a lot of beauty getting involved in a horse that doesn't involve actually being at the races.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. I think owners don't do that enough. I do say come to the gallops. You see more of the gallops, you're out. They're an hour, the lots are an hour, so you see him warming up, you see him trotting out, you see him going to the gallop, you see him going round, and then you see him walking in, you can give them a hand, wash him down. And I have an owner there, a guy called Paddy Woods. He bought his own horse to ride in those Corinthian Challenge. So he bought him himself, he has me train him, he rides him out himself 3 days a week. It's absolutely brilliant. And he still pays me for training.
Yeah. you get involved in the WhatsApp groups with the other owners then, but you feel like that's your new team now. So it's like adopting a team in the NFL. That's like, I've a horse with Johnny Murtagh, so all Johnny Murtagh's horses running, I feel part of that now, like I'm cheering them on, and I think people underestimate the buzz of that as well.
Yeah. You're also battling a dream. I mean, if you have a leg of a horse or whatever part of a horse that you have in a syndicate or that, you're there in a cold winter day and you realise, 6 months later, I could be at Aintree, I could be at Cheltenham, I could be at Leopardstown, I could be anywhere, I could be at the Kerr, I could be. It doesn't matter where you win. That dream that you're carrying with you for a few months, I think that's the beauty of it. Yeah, I think it should be done a lot more.
Yeah, John. We're obviously here talking about it's a weekend of champions. when you were listening to what Joe Schmidt and Johnny Murtagh were talking about, the level of obsession, you guys have to have a level of obsession, but you also kind of have to have an exterior life. That's the difference between being a full-time professional and it being your livelihood, and then also having a release from it. How do you get that work-life balance thing going? Or is that something that at this stage of your life you're kind of happy enough? It's like, you know, you're in the middle of a cycle, you've got to make that count as long as you can.
Yeah, well, I see playing for Dublin as something I love and I'm very passionate about. I'm very passionate about my county. I always wanted to play for Dublin since I was a kid, so I don't really see it as, you know, that sort of getting that balance, you know, I have to get away, but I just love doing it, and I know that, you know, I only have so many years to play, and after that there'll be loads of times to get involved in other things. So,
yeah, but even the way Johnny's talking about the food, like, it's probably, you're not making weight, so it's you know, there's no battle with the weighing scales for you, but like, you do know that if you take a shortcut, competition's pretty cutthroat at the moment. If you take a shortcut one night, you might get away with it, but if you take it for a week in the winter when the rest of the country is actually relaxing and having the crack, that it can put you at a bit of a, even against your own teammates, like, so that must be a relatively constant thing in your head.
Yeah, there's a massive drive there. You know, it's no secret the internal competition within Dublin is massive, and you can't rest on your laurels, and everyone's, you know, chomping at the bit to get your place and then to get picked for the next game. So that's what we just have, that drive, and that's the way we operate. Like,
yeah.
Even the day the horse was running up in Navan, he couldn't go because he was at a training camp, and it was actually kind of starting that, you know, he couldn't see his own horse run, and it's kind of like, I guess, the obsession that they have.
Yeah, you can't miss training though with Jim Gavin. Like, yeah. I'm going to see a horse. Like, yeah. Good luck. You can tell that.
Wouldn't wash with Jim.
Here, Johnny's on the phone. He wants me.
Yeah, I was glad he wasn't there as it turned out, but yeah, that was like, that's the level of dedication.
What was the quality this year? Well, like, if you were to pick the best team that you've played on over the 4 years, which year was the best team?
I don't know. They're all really good. A lot of the players are the same, but there's been some. I'm very lucky to have played with some brilliant players, and you know, they've been really good teams.
I know, pick a team for me, come on.
I couldn't pick it. Quite honestly, I couldn't pick a best team.
Wouldn't be me then.
No. If me didn't get robbed down in Navan, they could have been in the All-Ireland final.
Yeah.
Hey, if me didn't get robbed by Tyrone down in Navan, we could have been in the All-Ireland final.
Yeah. Never know.
You know, you see them green and gold jerseys coming, you know you're in trouble.
Oh yeah. Big time.
Do you get any...
if they give him a 10-point start.
Yeah. Is there any annoyance at all in the camp with the fact that people are going on about the money that you get and like your population and all that? Because it almost seems to take something away from just your own dedication and just the calibre of football, and how you're almost keeping football going in the minds of people who actually enjoy the virtuosity of the game because you're playing it the right way.
Yeah, I don't like to get into that discussion, but I don't see how money really affects that much. Like, if you see the effort and the time that us guys put in, and how hard we work, and how driven we are to represent Dublin, and to represent even the guys before us, and to, you know, to leave that legacy. I don't see how money is a big thing, but it seems to be a thing at the moment.
Is it annoying that it's a thing?
No, I don't. To be honest, I don't really listen to it. You see the odd thing and stuff, but I don't pay much notice to it.
Yeah, what do you pay attention to? Like, what? So how do you kind of live? You know, when you're supposed to live in this bubble of not paying attention to the outside world and reading stuff, but like, you live in the real world. You've got mates. You've got people like him kind of putting into your WhatsApp group. Geez, you won't believe what they just said about you now.
Yeah, you just get used to it, and you know, there are external things that I can't control, and I don't. As I said, Johnny would say, like,
he remembers the guy shouting over the wall.
Yeah, like, you don't pay too much heed to stuff like that, and you just, you know, you just concentrate on yourself, and you know.
That's not easy though. I guess that's what I'm asking, is like, everybody says that you're supposed to do that, but like, we all know that someone hurls a bit of abuse at you, 10 guys are saying you're great. It's the one you're like, what was that thing over there? I just want to go chew my ear into that one a little bit. It's very annoying.
I suppose it's who's saying it to you. You know, if it was one of my teammates saying it to you, you'd obviously take it on board very seriously. But someone externally doesn't really know what's going on. You know, you can't control that, and you just get on with things.
Are you good at that? Tuning
yeah,
that
wouldn't bother me at all. Now.
Were you always good at that, like from the get go? Because that's kind of.
No, it's probably something I learned over the years. But sure, even growing up, my dad was the biggest critic. After every game, he'd come in and he'd say like what I did wrong and stuff, and then you just kind of. Then as you got older, you just kind of learn, well, like, I did a lot of things right as well, and then, you know, with your dad saying it, so you take it on board, where so someone else saying it's not a big thing to me.
Yeah.
John, have you watched the game back yet? Yeah.
No, I haven't actually watched it back yet.
Have you any kind of vivid memories of the day, anything that stood out on the day, you know?
I always just try and soak it in, you know. You're walking around in the parade and stuff. It's very cool, and it's a great atmosphere, great energy, and that's just something, you know, that I would play back in my mind. And yeah, they're nice things.
You know, you're used to it now. You're 15, your first game against Kerry. Is it still shiver down the spine? I don't think it's anything like that. I mean, we even saw the planes going overhead. Do you really like feel, whoa, kind of an adrenaline, an extra adrenaline when you're near that parade?
Yeah, you feed off the atmosphere and the energy that's going on, and you know, it's great because like we're so lucky that we get this opportunity, but you know, you don't know when it's going to come around again, so you do have to enjoy it. But it's kind of, you're more focused on the game, and then after you might go, yeah, that was really cool.
Johnny, did you? We were talking earlier on about that and kind of living the occasion. If the horse was mad odds on in the big races, was that far more pressure, or could you ignore the expectation of the crowd?
Give you a little bit more motivation, yeah. You know, you'd need to be, you know, right on top of your game. You'd have all your homework done. Would be a little bit more, you know, because I remember riding Henry the Navigator in the Royal Ascot. He was going for his third Group 1. He won the English Guineas, the Irish Guineas. He was hot favourite at St James's Palace, and if he won that one, you know, it was big time stud. You know, I thought, this is really one, Royal Ascot. You know, he's a big favourite. So I just wanted everything to go really, really well. You know what I mean? When you're up on him when you go to the start, it's like, as he says, it's just another race, really. You know, but those few minutes, the most nerve-wracking time is when you meet everybody in the parade ring. You know, you're in the weigh room, it's grand, it's okay, you're getting tied up. Then you meet everybody in the parade ring. They're a little bit nervous, so you're trying to go through what's going to happen in the race and try and make them feel a bit comfortable.
Yeah.
And, you know, but at the same time, you just thought, just want to get up on the horse now. I just want to get up on the horse. I want to get to the start, nice and easy, and then go from there. So, but there would be a little bit more pressure on in those big races on a hot favourite.
Did Henry the Navigator win?
Won easy.
There you go. Perfect preparation. Right, we're going to take one more quick ad break. We're going to go through exactly what is going to happen at Leopardstown on Saturday and at the Curragh on Sunday, because we are on the eve of the Longines Irish Champions weekend. We're at the Leopardstown Inn. We've got a League of Champions for you this evening. As ever, if anybody wants to get in touch with us, of course, you can tweet us here at Off the Ball. We'll be right back after these. When we're doing these shows out and about, JP always has a list of credits at the end for people to thank who were involved in putting the show together, but he always leaves himself off. So I'd just like you all to give JP a round of applause. I'm going to do this list of credits now as well before we go off air on the radio. My thanks to everybody at the Leopardstown Inn for hosting us. They've been brilliant hosts. I had the ribeye steak sandwich. It was amazing. I would recommend it for anybody. Thanks to GoRacing.ie for getting us on board. Thanks to our guests, to Joe Schmidt, to Johnny Murtagh, to John Small, to John Duggan, to Johnny Ward. You can give yourselves a round of applause. That's it. Good stuff. We do have to talk about our charity bets for the weekend. As we've pointed out, Johnny hasn't had a great record, Johnny Ward, so maybe Johnny Murtagh might try and pick a winner for us over the weekend. We've got €50 courtesy of the Tote.com to give to the Injured Jockeys Fund. You know what you're doing.
I'll be disappointed now if this isn't one of your own.
The 100 to 1 shot.
I can't pick one of my own. I'm kind of jinx it, you know. But I'll tell you what, I do like Kenya in the Clipper Logistics Boomerang Stakes. Very good winner at Leopardstown or at the Curragh. He won the Cambridgeshire big competitive handicap. He won by 3 lengths. Time was very good. Could be a little bit underrated in Ballydoyle, you know what I mean? He's probably not one of the top workhorses.
Ryan Moore's not riding him either, funny enough.
No, he's not. Jamie's on him, but Jamie won on him. And I think he's one of those ones that at a big price, he's definitely a big player. So I'll have 25 each way on Kenya at what price?
So it's the Tote.com, so we find out after, obviously. But what's he at the moment, do you think?
He's hovering around race 6.
6 o'clock.
He's about 6 to 1. If Murtagh and Moore switch there, he'd be probably sort of 3 to 1 because it definitely looks a bit of value.
More in Heffernan, you mean? He's Murta.
Sorry, more in Heffernan, yeah.
He was like, if you're going to get up
But
on
in
him.
fairness, I'm just looking at him tonight.
Give him
Like,
credit, give him
that
credit.
lad could still be riding. Like, there are lads riding in their 50s now, Frankie Dettori and that. Like, this man
Yeah, what are
still
you doing,
This
Johnny?
man still looks fresh.
You're phoning it in, I can't believe it.
I'm one sweat away from a big comeback.
we were finally waiting for a headline tonight, you know.
Okay, you've got in the 10 past 7, the Sovereign Path Handicap. You're going for Silver Code. That's the last race tomorrow. What do you like about Silver Code?
I'm a big fan of trainers in form, and Joe Murphy, who trains this horse, lovely fella, down in Feathered, I think he trains. He had one winner all season up until last week, and he's had 2 in the last week, and basically every other horse he's had has been like run very well or been placed as well. This horse is 8 pounds lower than when second in the race last year, and I can only imagine this has been the plan, because this race is worth 88.5 grand for the winner. I think the owner, Mr. Egan, I think he's a horse and jockey pub and Tip, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's him.
Yep.
And obviously would have had a lot of jumps horses, but this horse has to be prepped for this race. Big fan of Gary Carroll, the rider. Drawn 5, big chance, and it'll be around about 12 to 1, I think. It's my nap of the weekend anyway.
All right, we like those odds. All right, we've only got 2 minutes left on the radio here. Brian O'Driscoll is coming up next for his first reappearance of the year. So after the next ad break on the radio, you're going to hear that. We're streaming live though on Facebook, so we might continue for the audience at home. You've been going through this race card, John Small. What do you like the look of?
In the group race,
I don't normally call people by their full names, by the way. It's just that we have Johnny.
Go for the big one.
Century.
You never get enough Johnnies.
I'm not going to tip a 2 to 7 or 1 to 3. No, I think if Ron Line goes odds against, it's an unbelievable bet. Like, he's beaten Saxon Warrior the last 3 times, beaten by 5 lengths at York. I know they'll say team tactics, O'Brien will have 4 in the race, but I don't see how he gets bet. He like the ground, there's optimum trip. If he goes odds against, I think he's a really good bet.
Okay, all right. Anything else on Saturday that you've been looking at?
I like Silver Code as well, believe it or not.
Oh,
Johnny
great
said.
mind.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Great
But,
mind.
I think the big race there, Alpha Centauri.
Yeah, let's talk about Alpha Centauri.
But I just don't think she'll have it as own. I think Lawrence is a big chance. Lawrence ran
Johnny is wrong here now.
Yeah.
This is the greatest certainty since John Small to get sent off in an All-Ireland final. This is a certainty now. This is a certainty.
But I do think
You're allowed to elbow him, by
I
the
do
way.
think
No
Alpha
one's gonna-
Centauri will win. But I think dropping back to a mile is really going to suit Lawrence. And if the jockey, if he just follows Alpha Centauri,
Do her for toll.
if I was riding her, I'd follow her and I'd attack her early. And you know she knows a mile and a quarter is probably her best trip. And die with your boots on. If you get beat, you get beat.
There's no point in backing Alpha Centauri at 7 to 2 on anyway. So go with an each way horsing.
Okay, so we'll say goodbye to our radio audience on News Talk. You can hear Brian O'Driscoll immediately after these. So good night to you folks. Thanks very much for being with us from the Leopardstown Inn. Obviously, stay with us for the stuff on the radio. To everybody watching on Facebook, though, we're going to continue here. I want to ask you about Alpha Centauri, away from the whole notion of somebody backing a race or a horse in that race. Just how amazing is Alpha Centauri as a horse? Yeah, Johnny, yeah.
She's pretty amazing. You know, she came out first time out this year, she got beat. You know, she was a very, very good 2-year-old. Her first 2 races were good. She went to Royal Ascot, but she was huge. So probably came too soon for her. Gave her a break. Jessica brought her back this year. Got beat first time out, but since then, she's the real deal. You know, a Group 1 in racing is like the All-Ireland final or the Six Nations. You know, that's the equivalent. Group 1s are the big races. They're the best races. All the horses going, and she's won her last 4. You know, so
She's as good as John Small.
Yeah, well, Kilkenny maybe. No, but she turns up every day. She runs hard. She goes up there. She sits on the pace. She'd be very, very hard to beat. But
The point that Johnny was making earlier on, though, about see the stars.
she reminds me of Ridgewood Pearl. I rode a filly called Ridgewood Pearl. You know, they can go out and they can win. And
She's the highest rated
fillies,
filly since her, I think, in Europe. Yeah.
And fillies, you know, fillies, when you get, like the women, when you get a good filly, you can't beat them.
Yeah. I think he meant that in a slightly different, like not an Al Pacino type way.
No.
Kind of a benign way, like.
Glad that bit didn't go on the radio. So listen, in terms of that, so Johnny was talking earlier on about see the stars and kind of maybe everybody in the country not fully understanding the opportunity they had to come and see the stars. There is a big opportunity for everybody to come tomorrow and see Alpha Centauri, and it will be something that everybody in years to come will go, we saw that horse.
Yeah, because like I think if you look back on Dawn Run was running at a time when Ireland was in recession, and we really struggled for winners at Cheltenham accordingly as well. We didn't really have the owners to actually have these horses. And notwithstanding the fact that she won a Champion Hurdle and a Gold Cup, she was a mare, and she was trained by Paddy Mullins. People could really relate to her, and people really warmed to fillies. Like Annie Power, the way people talk about Annie Power, like it has an awful lot to do with the fact that she is of the fairer sex. And Rachel Blackmore's kind of leading the jockey's title over jumps again has a lot to do with that. She's basically doing it for the ladies, and we don't look on her as a lady rider anymore. We look on her as like the leading jockey in Ireland at the moment. But Alpha Centauri is an absolute monster of a horse, yet she's a female, and she's just one of these freaks of nature, and people really relate to that. And also the fact, as John Osborne said to me there, we've the two top 3-year-old rated horses in Europe running in Roaring Lion and Alpha Centauri tomorrow, and you get the chance to see Alpha Centauri. And when I say you get the chance to see her, I mean you get the chance to see her in the flesh, because she is a monster to look at. She's a physical beast, and people have to appreciate how beautiful these horses are, and she certainly fits into that category.
Yeah. When we were kids, we used to love going down to actually see the horses in the parade ring, and we didn't know anything about the form or how to follow it. We would actually just back the horse that we liked the look of, or the one that was like showing the most kind of liveliness in the parade ring. And more often than not, it was as successful as like sticking the pin in as it would have been when we were kids going to the car. But it's one of those great race day experiences of actually going and seeing the horses in the parade ring before the race happens. Like, you shouldn't just stand at the bar and have a drink.
Absolutely, and you'll see this tomorrow as well. When Alpha Centauri gets into the parade ring, you'll just see this. There'll be a flock of people there, possibly even more so than Roaring Lion, because she's captured the imagination, because she's trained by Jessica Harrington, who obviously had her first Gold Cup winner with her first runner at 70, had her first Irish National winner the same year, and that was the best 3-year-old filly since Ridgewood Pearl. All of this happened in her 70s. You have Kevin Prendergast having a potential winner tomorrow in a group race at 86 years of age. You'll give up cigarettes at 50.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, what other sport could you see a guy at 86 like?
Even another 10 years.
Absolutely, I'm 15 actually. But yeah, so you get this, and she will be that paddock inspection kind of pick of the whole day.
Yeah, just about Roaring Lion and Saxon Warrior. These colours here for people who are watching at home.
They're Qatar Racing, so that's of Roaring Lion. Obviously, Sheikh Fahad. Johnny, you know more about him as well. He's just been an unbelievable supporter of the game, even riding in himself and having horse in bumpers as well.
Yeah, he's got a few horses with me. I'm lucky enough to have them. So he's great sport. You know, he took up riding himself, started riding these amateur races himself. So he's real passionate about it. This is a real big horse for him now. He needed this horse. You know, he put a lot of money into the game. He needed a big horse like this to come along. Got beaten the Guineas, ran in the Derby. But his last 2 runs, I think, have been pretty special. You know, York, he really quickened up really well. He's the best 3-year-old in Europe at the moment. But it's not a gimme. Again, he should win, but it's not a gimme. Aidan O'Brien has got 4 runners in the race, you know, so they'll know what's going on before it happens. Study of a man, he's coming over from France. He won the French Derby. He was expected to win last time. He ran disappointingly, but I think the horse in front got away on him. So French have a good record in the race. So although I think he'll win, it's not just a penalty kick with no goalie.
Will Sheikh Fahad be there tomorrow?
I think he is, yeah. He's coming over the whole week.
It's lightning quick. Obviously, Johnny and Sheikh Fahad will be discussing tactics. How do we get the 100-to-1 shot to possibly give Alpha Centauri a bit of trouble?
The Roaring Lion has never been beaten over, 1 mile 2, won the Dante, won the Eclipse, won the Adjutmont. So he's a very, very solid favourite, you got to say. The one horse I do like is Rhododendron, is 20-to-1, second in an English 2,000 guineas, second in an Oaks. Won the Longines Stakes in May, and Aidan O'Brien has admitted his horses have not been firing for the whole season. And I think at 20-to-1 to reach the frame for an each-way bet, Rhododendron might not be a bad option.
Is that your tip for the weekend?
No.
Oh yeah, okay. Have you got one for us?
Yeah, I got one in the ledger on the Curragh, which is of course the other big race. That's on Sunday. So they got 4 Group 1s at the Curragh. Interesting that Ryan Moore's going to Doncaster and then flying in here to Leopardstown tomorrow. But the horse I like is in the 450 on Sunday in the St. Ledger, the Curragh. It's called Weekender, coming over 4-to-1 shot. I think it's John Gosden, who's had a brilliant season. Good attitude this horse has shown, second in the Ebor. I don't think the quality of the opposition is as strong as possibly previous years. And I think Weekender could be a very good, solid proposition. Johnny Mercer is in agreement with me as well. So I'm actually more calm and more relaxed about my tip. And actually, that's why I probably gave it to you, because Johnny Mercer said it as well.
You've given it your blessing. Is there anything else about this weekend, Johnny, you think we should be looking at?
Yeah, there's a horse called, I went through them all today. It's funny, you're talking about Johnny Ward, talking about legs and whatever, like, I don't know, like part of the horse's mane, like a hair of the mane that you might own. And friends of mine, own part of Master Speaker, who's running tomorrow in the 7:10. He's 16-1. He won a couple of races after transferring to Adrian McGuinness's yard earlier in the season. He won a couple of races at Dundalk. He's been running consistently in handicaps. I think they fancy his chances quietly tomorrow at 16-1 in a 7 furlong race. It's 7:10. But apart from Weekender, the other one I really like is in the Vincent O'Brien National Stakes, the 4:50 in Acura on Sunday. We'll put these up on Twitter at Off the Ball and over the weekend as well. It's called Quarto. In the Godolphin colours, coming over 11-8. I think a progressive 2-year-old. One is 2 runs. Both at a 2. Quarto, Weekender, and Master Speaker and Rhododendron. They're the 4 I like this weekend.
Good stuff. The Quarto one is a great. We like rivalries, obviously, in sport in general. Quarto was by the flagship Dubawi stallion of basically Godolphin, and Galileo was the sire of Anthony Van Dyke. And Godolphin and Coolmore had kind of a standoff for many years. That was proper rivalry. It's kind of become a little bit more, I suppose, friendly in recent years. But this is a proper clash of 2-year-olds. The 2 best 2-year-olds, probably the 2 most likely Guineas winners next season. And we spoke about Fantastic Light and Galileo. It's not quite that, but this is kind of some sort of equivalent. And there'll be a winner. Winner has all the bragging rights from the big race on Sunday.
That's on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we were talking a little bit about that earlier on. We kind of just meant to get into it, but we can actually get into that again in the aftermath of it in next week's show. John Small, thanks very much. Johnny Murtagh, thanks very much. It's been great having some time in your company. John Duggan, Johnny Ward, Johnny, John. Thanks very much to you guys for coming out tonight. Enjoy. We do hope that we'll win some money courtesy of the tote.com. And as I said earlier on, my thanks to everybody at the Leopardstown Inn for hosting us here for the Longines Irish Champions Weekend.
That's the old Longines mentioning again.
There you go. The Longines Irish Champions Weekend, I think you'll find. Thanks, guys. Thanks a million. See you at home too. Cheers.